What's up, guys? Welcome to G Whiskey. My name is Jeff. Now, this is a channel where I offer my thoughts and opinions on a specific whiskey, and if you stick around to the end, I'll be giving it a score as well. If that sounds interesting, hit subscribe down below. And with that out of the way, why don't we jump into a review? Today, we're looking at the Nanto Omar Sherry Cask. Stick around. So we've got kind of an interesting one today. This is probably one of the more obscure reviews that I've done on my channel. We're heading over to Taiwan, and we're looking at a whiskey called Omar. Omar is made at the Nanto Distillery in central Taiwan, and the Nanto Distillery is actually owned by a brand called TTL, which stands for Taiwan Tobacco and Liquor Association. And TTL is actually a state-owned entity, so in fact what we've got here is a government-produced whiskey. Now, as many of you know, I live in Taiwan, and I've had a lot of you ask, when am I going to get around to reviewing a Taiwanese whiskey? Well, here we are. I'm sure a lot of you were expecting a Kavalan, and I did consider it. I have a few Kavalans on the go at the moment, but figured we'd start with our Omar here just because I'm an unpredictable scoundrel. Now, Taiwan doesn't produce barley, so the barley they use for the whiskeys all has to be imported. Obviously, they're importing their casks as well, but the entire production process does happen here in Taiwan. Now, as you might expect, whiskey maturation happens a lot faster here. We are a subtropical climate. That's why, like Indian whiskeys, very few Taiwanese whiskeys come with age statements. You have faster interaction with the wood, more angel share, etc., etc. So I actually don't know how old this whiskey is, but probably not very old. Nanto Distillery is often overshadowed by Kavalan, which is the behemoth of Taiwanese whiskey, but Nanto's been making some pretty solid whiskey for just over 10 years now, and they have developed a pretty solid reputation, especially domestically. And they've also expanded into several foreign markets. You can find their stuff in Japan, Korea, Russia, Australia, and the US. They also have a presence in Europe, but for their European releases, they're sold under the name Yushan, and they have a completely different bottle presentation. Here in Taiwan, you're going to find their stuff in most whiskey shops, and they have a pretty wide variety of stuff available on the domestic market. There's a lot of single cask releases, as well as a lot of limited editions. The one we're looking at today is part of their core range. This is their Sherry Matured entry-level expression. They also have a similarly priced Bourbon Matured offering available too. Now, I first tried both the Sherry and the Bourbon releases about 8 years ago, and I haven't come back to them since, so it's been a while. But I do remember enjoying them at the time. And I remember when I tried them way back in the day, I assumed that I would like the sherried expression more just because I tend to gravitate towards sherried whiskeys. I'm kind of a sherry guy. But at the time, I ended up preferring the bourbon one. Now, I don't know if that's still going to be the case. Again, this was 8 years ago, so I'm sure a lot has changed, and I'm sure the whiskey we've got in our bottle today is quite different from the stuff I had back then. So with that out of the way, why don't we hop into a review of this one, see what our whiskey's all about, and in the meantime, if you can kindly leave a like down below, that'd be greatly appreciated. So we do have some pretty good specs here. Our ABV comes in at 46%. This is a non-chill filtered expression, and our color is natural, which honestly isn't very surprising because generally speaking, Taiwanese whiskeys are pretty good with craft presentation. So we have a nice natural color here. For bottle presentation, I don't think this is great. I much prefer their Yushan bottles that they sell in Europe. This one, I think it looks a little bit dated. It's not particularly stylish with the label here. To be fair, they do sell most of their whiskey domestically, and this look might fit the Taiwanese aesthetic, but personally, I'm not a big fan. Presentation score here is going to be 0.5 out of 5. I'm not a big fan of the yellow color scheme, and I also don't like the name Omar. It means amber in Gaelic, but, you know, Gaelic names are pretentious enough as it is from the Scots. I'm not sure why a Taiwanese brand felt the need to adopt a Gaelic name for its whiskey, but okay. Besides, Omar just kind of sounds like a person's name. It reminds me of my old landlord that I had back in college, so yeah, weird. Non-chill filtered in Chinese on the back here. Now, my Chinese is not great, but I don't think I see anything about being naturally colored, although we know that this is a natural color. But yeah, the look, the presentation of this whiskey doesn't do very much for me. I don't really like it. Let's try our nose. Nice. So this is a very earthy sherry. It's sweet, but it's measured. I'm getting lots of sort of like thick molassesy type notes, or like treacle. Yeah, treacle, raisins, dates. We have some blackcurrant in here, some Christmas cake. We also have a black licorice note, some Japanese plum wine, and some blood oranges. Let's try the palate. Very nice. Very sherry forward. Again, very earthy. I'm getting more of that Japanese plum wine in here. I'm getting cherries, black currant jam. There's some like autumn leaves in here. Hoisin sauce, some savory beef broth type notes, and some treacle. Now the finish. Still on earth and treacle, leading us into some oak spice. We've got wood varnish, more plum wine, more licorice, more broth, black currant jam again, and lingering on some orange notes and some dark berry jam. So this is wonderful stuff. I think it's gotten much better. The whiskey we've got today is a far cry from the stuff I tried 8 years ago. This one is going to be much richer, fuller, deeper, and it has that really nice earthy note to it. Now this might be psychological knowing that we've got a Taiwanese whiskey with us, but I do taste a lot of like Chinese or Asian style flavors in this. I mentioned the plum wine, I mentioned the hoisin sauce, both of which are very distinctive. Those notes combined with that earthiness and some classic dark sherry flavors in this, all of it comes together in a very harmonious way, and it's a surprisingly rich whiskey. Very few entry-level expressions give us such a full mouth-coating experience. And I also really love that brothy note in here. It's very distinctive, and I say brothy, not meaty. It's more like a pork sauce or something, but really good, adds a lot to the character. So yeah, I can't read a lot of Chinese, as I mentioned before, so I don't know too much about the specifics of the production process for this, but based on the flavors, I think they chose some excellent casks to mature this in. So this is a really nice whiskey, and I think it is worth seeking out if you can find it. As I mentioned earlier, it is available in a lot of international markets. I think it's a great example of an Asian approach to whiskey. I think this whiskey is an interesting mix of styles. Obviously, it's a Taiwanese style whiskey, but we get a little bit of a Japanese influence and obviously a Scottish influence in there too. And the result is all quality. This is not a whiskey to be missed, especially if you're a fan of big sherry. Now, as I mentioned, I haven't had that bourbon matured expression in a very long time, but having tried this one, I am very curious to come back to it. So my score for this one is going to be 89. I think it's a gorgeous whiskey. I think it's a fantastic entry-level expression. We get some big, rich, full sherry in this, as well as some really distinctive notes. Not only that, this ranks very highly in terms of reachability. This is a whiskey that I keep coming back to. So if you've ever had a Kavalan and you enjoyed it, you'll probably find something to like in this one too. I think both Kavalan and Nantou have a very good density of flavor to their whiskeys, and I'm sure part of that is climate related, but I also think a lot of time and energy was spent on the quality of these whiskeys. So don't sleep on Nantou Distillery. They make good stuff. I do wish that they had a wider, more affordable core range and fewer one-off bottlings, but that's a small gripe. We have an excellent distillate here, some great casks were used, and the result is balanced and delicious. Excellent value on this whiskey. This one comes in at the low end of entry-level pricing here in Taiwan. Now, that cheap price is to be expected because A, it's the domestic market for this product, and B, we already have a very competitive whiskey market here in Taiwan. We have some of the lowest prices for whiskey in the world, I believe. Now, I usually don't go into specifics about how much I paid for a bottle. I prefer to speak more generally just because whiskey prices vary internationally so much. But if you'll allow me to brag a little bit, I paid the equivalent of about $32 or 23 pounds for this whiskey, and that's insane. The quality to price ratio on this bottle is ridiculous. Now, I checked online, and apparently UK pricing for this bottle is about double that, and honestly, I still think it's worth it. It's a wonderful whiskey, and even at that price, I think you'll get a lot out of it. Alright, that's going to be it for me today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. As always, hit subscribe down below, click that little bell icon, and of course, smash the like. Now, this one I am curious to hear from you guys about. Is this available in your market? Do you feel like you overpaid for it? What were your thoughts on the whiskey itself? Finally, down in the comments, let me know what you want to see me review next, and I'll keep it in mind for my upcoming videos. Bye, guys.